Welcome back to Throttles Bottles, a show about rides, risks, and the people bold enough to live both. I'm your host, Brad Miller, and I'm joined today by Peter Lago.
Thanks for having me.
We're in Hollister, California, the birthplace of the American biker. At the center of it all sits Johnny's Bar and Grill, a place that's more than a bar, it's a piece of motorcycle history. Johnny's was at the heart of the 1947 rally that inspired the Wild One and helped shape the soul of motorcycle culture. Peter is the man keeping that story alive today. As the writer, storyteller, and custodian of this piece of American history, he's preserving the legacy, correcting the myths, and revealing the meaning behind one of the most iconic biker landmarks in the world. On today's episode, we discuss what Johnny's means to bikers, how history lives in the floors of burnout rings, and why every detail, from the mural to the burger bun, tells part of this place's story. Peter, thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Let's go ahead and get started. As everyone knows, every good story starts with a drink, so let's pour the first round and see where the road takes us. Before we get too deep into the episode, I want to say a quick thanks to one of our sponsors, DeRose Winery. They graciously provided the bottle that we'll be drinking today, which is a bottle of their 2022 Cabernet Franc. This is the first pour. It's the part of the show where we crack open whatever the guest picked, kick back, and let the story start flowing. Today's pour is extra special. It's from DeRose Winery, just a few miles south of here, in the heart of San Benito County. This was Peter's pick, and it makes perfect sense. DeRose is one of the oldest wineries in California, and it's got deep local roots, just like Johnny's. Even better, it ties straight into the legend of Wino Willie Faulkner and the Booze Fighters MC. So whether you're here for the wine, the history, or the ride, this bottle covers all three. Peter, what made you think of DeRose, and why did you think that was important for this episode?
An important aspect of being out here since the early 2000s was my ability to break away from things and go on a short little loop ride, and that's out of Highway 25. DeRose is right on Highway 25, and I discovered them a few years ago. Talked with the owner and found out that he has some of the oldest vines in the world are here. They've imported them before he bought the place, and from somewhere in Italy or Europe, I don't want to misquote him, imported those vines, and they are here growing some of the best wine that I've ever had. So every time I go out on the loop, I'll usually stop by there, pick up a bottle. And I think it's just intrinsic to the culture of the area. We have a wine loop, we have a nice place to ride and everything like that. And we have some of the oldest vines in California being grown right down the road on a beautiful loop.
Absolutely. Well, I'm excited to try it. I haven't tried it yet, but I met the owner, Al, who was awesome. Talked to him for a little bit, and he gave us the bottles, so I can't wait. Cheers, sir.
Cheers. Very good.
That's delicious.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's not too tannic. There's not a bunch of sulfides in it or anything like that. It's just real.
Yeah, it's good, too. I'm glad that you suggested this one. So now that we've got something in our glass, let's begin. I want to kind of break this episode into two parts. First, your personal story and how motorcycles have shaped your life. And second, the story of Johnny's itself. So, Peter, let's go back to the beginning. What is your first memory of a motorcycle?
Boy.
It's not too far back.
I was probably 8 years old when a kid handed me a Sears and Roebuck mini bike. And we took that thing out into the desert. I grew up in Las Vegas. My front door faced open desert, so I grew up on dirt bikes. And everything from there was just the exhilaration of being in that state of flow when you're on a motorcycle, combined with, I think when I was 6 years old, my Uncle John, who used to cross the country on a Goldwing, had to take me to my mom's work. She was a checker, she was striking, and he brought me down there because she'd brought my my big wheel. Remember the green machine?
Yeah.
I had one of those. And so she brought me out there to ride the thing in front of the store, but she was already there. She had the big wheel, and John brought me out there on his motorcycle. Now at the time there's no helmet law, there's no nothing, so I'm just sitting on the back of this Goldwing, and he put his foot down to hold it up at a light, and I just remember thinking he was the strongest guy in the world to be able to hold up this entire machine that I couldn't budge, and then starts dropping the bike into the corner, and the acceleration pulled it back up, and as soon as I felt that bit of inertia, I was hooked. From then, everything has been being in that state of flow, understanding that state of flow is good for my mental whole being, and provides a sense of meditation.
And I think it's a pretty common experience that riders identify is that flow state, that meditative state, especially on a longer ride on a back road. You're the only person out there, and you just kind of get into that headspace.
Yeah,
I definitely feel the same way.
Yeah.
Growing up in Vegas, what was the riding scene like? Was there a particular group, shop, local route that shaped you?
I had friends with dirt bike shops and motorcycle shops. There wasn't much of a riding scene that I was a part of. I had my friends that I rode dirt bikes with, but pretty much when you were on your way to and from work, I kept a motorcycle as my primary source of transportation almost everywhere, and I kept something four-wheel drive off to the side because I had two hobbies. It was either being on road and being efficient on road, or being off road and just enjoying things. So being in Las Vegas, I had a 76 KZ 900, which is still one of my favorite bikes to this day. That thing would accelerate violently, but it wouldn't corner or stop worth a shit. But it was a fantastic motorcycle, and for longer trips, it worked great. It wasn't a Harley, and it wasn't until I got to Hawaii that I experienced the very first Harley, which was awful. It was an Ironhead Sportster with the shifter on the wrong side. It was a chopper. It was awful. After that, I had a 73 Shovelhead with a 3-inch open belt primary, kickstart only, and just fell in love with it. There's just something about the way they accelerate, the power band, where it is. That V-twin configuration just has a spirit of its own. It has a soul of its own. And it's not the fastest motorcycle out there. It's not the most, even the modern Harleys. They're certainly not the fastest, but they have a soul. And that is intrinsic to that experience of being in a state of flow.
Absolutely. You feel it more, I feel like, on a cruiser, a Harley, Indian.
Yeah, whether it's on an Indian, just that V-twin configuration and the way they kind of rubber band through their power band is something that it's predictable and it lights up your soul.
Absolutely. You've worked around bikes, bars, and big events. Do you see riding as a job, a lifestyle, or as an escape?
It's a lifestyle. It's also an escape at times, but what they say, wherever you go, there you are. I remember in 2012, one of my first times out to Sturgis, I'd had a breakup, and I figured, I'm going to get on the road and I'm going to forget about all this. You have nothing to think about but your own thoughts.
Yeah.
So you're captive to what you need to think about, and the ability to process that while you're in a state of flow is intrinsic to your mental health. So for me, being able to be on the bike, process my feelings, and stay in that state of flow with no distractions has been just really, everybody should do it. Obviously motorcycling is not cut out for everybody. Not everybody's cut out for motorcycling. As they say, if at first you don't succeed, maybe skydiving isn't for you. There are some inherent dangers to being on a motorcycle for sure.
Absolutely.
But if you can navigate it responsibly, it is a well source of mental well-being for those who need a moment to process.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think that's been the biggest realization for me as well, as I've gotten further and further and further into the bike community and riding myself, is just the amount of mental health help that it has provided, especially as a man, has been amazing. Because oftentimes we're told, shut up, and
nobody cares about our feelings.
Yeah, and if you're inside a helmet and it's just you on a road, your head isn't shutting up, but you can really fix a lot of things that way.
Yeah, you can face a lot of your own self-doubt, a lot of your own feelings and everything like that when you have an extended period of time where there's just you in tune with a machine that's breathing air like you are, and you become synergistic with that vehicle. And then it's just the landscape. I mean, you're riding through this landscape, experiencing the world in smell-o-vision.
Yeah.
You drop down into a draw, you feel the moisture, you feel the cool, you come back out of it, you feel the heat. You'll experience 6 different climates in one day. And all of that, it tempers the mindset.
Absolutely. What's been your favorite ride or route so far?
Oh God, there's a lot of them. 2023, I rode solo up to Adigan Pass, up to Prudhoe Bay in Alaska. A lot of that trip had some amazing areas where I found myself saying wow more times than I ever have in my life in one day. I'd say the Kenai Peninsula down in Alaska is absolutely beautiful, absolutely worthy of riding. Adigan Pass had a magic moment for me where I got up to the top of it and all the noise and everything from the rest of the world just disappeared on the other side of it, and I found myself in one of the most radiologically isolated areas, because you're right there at the top of the world where all of the magnetic bands come back down, and all of that that we don't experience on a daily basis, like crickets chirping in the background, like white noise, all the radio signals, all the cell phone signals, all of the static from power lines, it all goes away right there. And when you're on the other side of it, it is dead quiet electronically. Your body experiences that, and it's one of those things where I wish there was somebody with me to notice it at the same time, because it was absolutely one of the most peaceful areas I'd ever been through. Aside from that, there's routes that I take to and from Sturgis. I hit every national park on the way there, and getting there is more of a family reunion to me. But for me, it's always been not the destination, but the road itself is the destination.
Yeah, and you mentioned the ride up to Alaska. I want to talk about in a little bit, but you mentioned Sturgis. Would you say that's your favorite rally? I know you've talked frequently about it.
It certainly offers the most amount of rides you can go on at any single rally. Having been to a lot of the rallies that are out there, the rally itself is sort of the destination, the things that are around there. Sturgis offers not only just the event in Sturgis itself, but there's so many beautiful places to ride to. There's Devil's Tower, there's monuments, there's Rushmore, there's Crazy Horse, there's canyons and things like that to ride through. It is, by all intents and purposes, the small world ride for motorcycles.
Yeah.
It is quite populated when everybody is there, but to arrive there a little early or just late of the event is probably some of the best riding you'll ever experience.
It's actually a great idea. I haven't been yet, and Chaz and I talked with Mike Corbin at one of our last recordings, and he rides every year, and he invited us, so we might have to take him up on that.
I can't ride Spearfish Canyon enough.
Yeah, okay. I'll have to look it up. So let's talk about that ride to Alaska. You told me that you rode up there solo, and the goal of it was to put a sticker on a sign. And I'm obviously oversimplifying that, but what's the story behind that? Why did you decide to go up there?
Well, my best friend and I needed some way to kind of communicate and realign ourselves. And in that process, he said, well, you've got a Harley and I've got a BMW GS. I'm set up for off-road. You're not. And I said, well, I've got two classic cars sitting in my driveway. I'll sell one. I'll get the bike. Let's go. Let's go on a bro healing trip. And so a couple weeks before, some things had come up in his life and he wasn't able to go. But I'd already told everybody that I was going. And if you know the history behind the bar, there was a rule about Allied machinery after World War II, which is if you're going to be in this community, it needs to be Allied machinery, meaning it needed to be an Indian or a BSA or a Harley or something along those lines. You couldn't buy something that was made in Germany and ride it. Makes sense. So here I am on a German motorcycle. And so I have about 10, 15,000 people that follow me through social media, and they needed an explanation as to why I had done this. So leaving the backstory of my friend of it out and everything like that, I determined that I was going to go anyway, and I just thought it would be cool to be the only bar owner in America that rode solo all the way up to Prudhoe Bay and slapped a sticker up there. So there's Johnny's Bar and Grill stickers from here all the way up to Prudhoe Bay at the very top. And one of my proudest moments is when I'm standing there in front of the general store where there's stickers from other countries and other people and everything like that, and mine is higher than anybody can get it because I'm tall and I was standing on my seat. Yeah, a Corbin seat, by the way.
There we go.
Which was very comfortable on the way up there, and Mike was wise enough to tell me to add the heating element to it, so I did.
Yeah, that seems like a good idea for an Alaska trip.
Yeah, it came in handy. Heated grips, heated seat, and it was summer, but there were some spots there where it dropped down into the 30s, and you're going over passes and everything like that. Yeah. That was important for my person. To be able to do something that I challenged myself and seen it through was super important for me to do for myself in my own lifetime. And I have a couple of other things that I would like to do. I'd like to do the Pan America Highway all the way down to the bottom because technically it starts up there. So I'd like to do it all the way down. And, there's geopolitics involved with getting your bike through borders and everything like that, which I'm still researching and looking into. But that's one of the things that I would like to do.
Yeah. Well, that was what my next question was going to be. If you could take like a cross-country trip or cross multiple country trip, where would it be? Who would it be with?
I've ridden in all 50 states, so that's something I can check off the list. Nice. I've been cross country twice, and I've been north to south twice. I've done a lot of America. There's still a lot more of America to explore. And I think next year I'll probably do another cross country, go down to Florida, go down to that lowest point in the United States, because I've already been up to the highest point in the United States. That would be one thing that I could check off the list. Yeah. having the physical ability to do it while I'm still young enough to do it is important to just check off my man list of things that I would like to do.
Yeah. And I know you said that you lived on Maui for a long time. I lived in Oahu for a few years. The riding scene was pretty limited. I mean, I was a squid, brand new. Didn't really know what I was doing and didn't ride too much out there. But on Maui, what was the riding like there? Because you lived there for 17 years?
Thereabouts, yeah. Great roads. There's a bunch of twisty windies up there. I will say that, 4.5 hours in any direction, you're right back where you started. But there's a good culture out there. There's good people out there to ride with. Everybody pretty much gets along. So you go to a local biker bar and you know everybody that's there, and it's all just kind of getting to know everybody and going around. Maui has some beautiful rides with beautiful vistas. There's, in 15 years, you've pretty much done it all. Yeah. So it's more of a social thing than it is obviously a distance thing because you're landlocked. Right. But it was a beautiful thing. I would say 360 days out of the year I was riding. There's a couple days where it's just raining too damn hard. Yeah. But other than that, you ride your bike pretty much every day.
That's cool. Last one before we shift gears. You've ridden tons of different motorcycles, owned tons of different motorcycles. What's the most underrated bike you've ever ridden?
Underrated. The two that I can think of off the top of my head that impressed me the most were probably that 76 KZ 900, because I bought it barely running. I bought it through a friend of mine, and we changed it out to electronic ignition. We put Mikuni pods on it. We changed out the carburetors. We put a smaller sprocket in the rear end. I took it out from Las Vegas to State Line. The statute of limitations has run off on what I'm going to say right now. So it was early morning on a Sunday. There's nobody out there. This is in the 90s, and I pegged that thing out at about 180 miles an hour, just tucking and just hitting it. And I went back to my mechanic, and I go, dude, I buried the needle at 170 to where it was straight down. I know I was going 180. He goes, you idiot. I go, what do you mean? He goes, well, you have spoke rims. I said, yeah. He goes, they're not designed for that. Yeah. He goes, you have tubes. I said, yeah. He goes, your wheels weren't balanced. He goes, did it feel like you were flying? And I said, well, a little bit. And he goes, that's because you were touching the ground in a contact patch a half an inch wide and 3 inches long, once every 7 to 10 feet. He goes, you didn't have any traction to go any further, did you? I said, no, I didn't. He goes, yeah, get mags. I didn't. I kept it the way it was. I never tried to go 180 miles on that bike ever again. But that bike, once we got it running properly, ran perfectly forever. Yeah. The other one I would say that has been most impressive has probably been that BMW GS 1250. It needed nothing other than an oil change. It's like a crotch rocket and a dirt bike had a baby. And I catch a lot of flack for having, a BMW adventure bike, and not just being a Harley guy, but I'm not a brand guy. I'm a bike guy. And you have more than one pair of shoes. You have your dress shoes for the streets. You have your hiking shoes for hiking. That's my hiking shoes. And the nice thing about that bike is it's the right bike wherever you're at. Now, culturally, it's a bit of a pocket pencil protector in your pocket. Yeah. It's not the coolest looking bike, but it gets the job done.
I've heard great things about adventure bikes, and I have a couple buddies that ride them, and I've never had the opportunity to ride one yet, but
highly recommend
all I've heard is just
Africa Twin is awesome. Yeah. The only thing about that bike that I think is a downer on that bike is because the engine is in the front, it's a little front heavy. When you get into deep sand or gravel, it wants to nosedive. There are bikes like the Africa Twin and like the Suzuki V-Strom and everything like that that have their weight shifted back a little bit so that you don't nosedive when you're in that stuff. And I would love to explore some other adventure bikes for lighter touring, but as far as for being on the road and needing a little off-road, the BMW is king.
I'll have to look into it. So you've clearly lived the life. Somewhere along the ride, you went from rider to story keeper, and that story is written all over these walls next to us. So let's talk about Johnny's, what it is, how you came to own it, and why this place matters. What is your first memory of Johnny's? Were you a regular before you ever dreamed of owning it?
No, I had actually bailed a friend out of a bar fight and then became a bouncer alongside of him in Hawaii. And then eventually he came over to my house and he saw a poster that I have hanging up there with Marlon Brando walking across there. And he goes, oh, you've been to Johnny's? And I said, nope. I just, I'm a fan of the history, and I always wanted to go cross country, and I thought at some point I'd ship my bike down to San Diego, go to Hollister, check out that bar, do my cross country, go back and redeposit myself back in Hawaii. And he goes, my sister owns that bar. And this is a friend of mine named Jake Jacobus. And so Jake goes, well, we need help at this rally that's coming up. We'd love to have you. And I said, I don't know if I can afford to fly there, and then I wouldn't have my bike. He goes, I will fly you. I will get you a bike. And this is how I discovered DeRose. I came out here in 2002, helped him out with the rally, and the previous owner's husband said, go take my bike for a ride. And so he had this green Road King, and I took it along the Highway 25 little loop, Cienega Loop and everything like that, discovered the winery, and just went in and did a tasting real quick. Didn't have time. I had to get back here. So from 2002 to 2017, I was here every year helping them out with the rally, doing whatever needed to be done. And as I was here, I got to meet more people. I got to dig into the history a little bit more and realized how much more special this place was than I had imagined.
Interesting. Tell me what the energy was like back at those rallies in the early thousands and mid thousands. How is it different than now? Obviously, we can talk about today's rallies here later, but...
Well, a biker rally never suffers from a lack of testosterone. So the first impression when I walked in the door as the guy who had to deal with whatever went down was kind of like, man, I hope I can handle this, because this place was packed. I mean, it was shoulder to shoulder with big dudes.
Yeah.
And the one thing that I learned pretty easy was that everybody is, for the most part, 99% of them are really nice people who are all just coming in to meet each other, hang out, haven't seen you in a couple of years. People come from all over the place to reunite here, similar to Sturgis. People come cross country, and it's more of a family reunion at this point for me, having gone to Sturgis as many years as I have. I look forward to seeing people that I might not see next year, because things take us out. There's a lot of people that die from cancer. There's a lot of people that die from motorcycle accidents. You combine the two, and it's a 50-50 chance I'm going to see you next year. So I'm going to give you a hug before I leave. And here's no different. So the environment here was, the entire street was a sea of motorcycles, people trying to get in the bar. It was all shoulder to shoulder. It was great energy, and it was all people that were looking forward to running into that friend that they hadn't seen in a long time. And everybody knew the history. This is baby boomer history. So a lot of these people were of that age, late 90s, early 2000s, where they knew the Marlon Brando movie. They knew the whole history that all predates us back into the 1930s.
Interesting. So walk us through how you ended up owning Johnny's. You came here, you were helping out for quite a few years, and then you made the decision to buy it, or just let's talk about how that happened.
Combination of events. One, I was in Hawaii. I had a recording studio there. I'd gotten away from bouncing in bars and working in bars and everything like that. And I was flown back out to do the rally for the previous owner. And then she'd had me come back out and record her audiobook. In the process of that, she handed me the P&Ls and said, here, I really want to have you look at buying this bar. I think you'd be a good custodian of this history because you understand the history. And I thought about it. I went back home, and my dad had some health problems, and he takes care of my mom, and I realized that it's getting to that time of life where I need to avail myself to my parents more than I can from Hawaii. So in November of 2017, I moved out here from Hawaii to buy the bars so that I could avail myself to my parents. And since then, even with COVID and everything like that, I've been able to drop what I'm doing and go remodel their bathroom and get the black mold out and help them in little ways that I wouldn't have been able to if I'd been there. So part of this is twofold for me. I love being a custodian of this piece of history. I think it's very important to not just motorcycling, but to American history. And we'll get into all this when you get to that question, I'm sure. The other part was availing myself to my parents in a way that is useful. And so I wanted to be there for them in their latter years to take care of them.
Makes sense. And when you took over in 2018, what surprised you the most? You've been here for years, you've kind of seen the P&Ls, you've seen everything else, but actually taking over, owning the bar, what surprised you the most in that first week, month, year of operation?
Well, the previous owner had poisoned the well. She'd written an article about me in the local newspaper that said, don't bite the hand that feeds you, and made it look like I had screwed her in some way, shape, or form. Initially, she wanted $500,000 for the business, and I thought it was the building included, and it turns out it wasn't that. It was actually just the liquor license, and the bar was under a boycott from the whole COC, which I wasn't aware of. There was, the floors were black, the pipes were broken, the bar was pretty derelict, and it wasn't really making any money. I immediately went to work on all of the mechanical things that I could, but having poisoned the reputation of the new owner and everything. A lot of the locals left. Some of the bartenders left. I really faced a hard time in the beginning because there'd been a fair amount of shit talking. Once people got to know who I was, things started to turn around a little bit. But, you know, when you own a bar, there's always that somebody that you kicked out that goes and tells everybody that you're a bad guy or whatever. And because I didn't grow up here and everything like that, I was at a distinct disadvantage for my reputation. So after a while, I figured, you know, I have a new identity. It's gone from being, you know, a recording engineer and a security specialist to now I'm just a dive bar owner. I might as well embrace it. And if people don't like me, that's their problem. So this town's cured me at least of the ability to care whether or not I'm liked. And that's just one of the things that comes along within the story of being a biker, is being misidentified as a bad guy and having everyone turn against you because you fit into a box or a category that they think you are.
Yeah. And you said that you kind of took it over in a derelict state and had to make some changes. What's the biggest change that you've made since taking over, and what's something that you will never change?
Well, one of the bigger changes initially was putting in a POS system so that I could, you know, be responsible with my taxes. The last person, you know, just ran cash registers, and I figured the bar would probably be a bit of a target because there's been a prevailing attitude of, and it's been divided in this town, they want to rally, they don't want to rally. So if you leave an opening for them to come in, they'll take it. So I wanted to make sure that I was doing everything above board. So that was one of the big things that I did. The other thing was I finally was able to help get the rallies back. And that's been a 7-year process of no rallies. And it was one of the main reasons why I bought the bar, is because I was under the understanding that this bar would make $100,000 every 4th of July. And so for the first 6 years of owning it, I didn't, because not only was the bar initially under a boycott from the previous owner, but there was also no rallies, no reason to have rallies. And that's a huge chunk of change missing from a bar that its only claim to fame is really that rally and the reasons to have that rally. So that was taken away. So surviving under that plus 2 years of COVID was difficult. And in terms of changes, I've tried to leave everything exactly the way it was. There's all these plaques up here that are made from apricot boxes because this was primarily apricot fields around us. Business owners, if they wanted to be on the wall, would find an apricot box, paint their name on it, and it would go up on the wall. And I've been very diligent about keeping those up. And the only ones I've ever taken down have been when somebody came in and said, that was my grandfather's business, can I have that plaque? And I've given it back to them and or moved them around. But pretty much every plaque that was on the wall when I bought the bar is still there or somewhere around here.
That's awesome. I think that's probably a great way to transition from your story of how you acquired this into what Johnny's is, because for some people that are going to be watching this, we seem to just be in a bar right now, and there's obviously the history wall behind us. And so I wanted to talk about what Johnny's is, what it was, what it is, what it means to bikers, what it means to you, what it means to me, what it means to motorcycle culture, motorcycle clubs. So it's kind of an open-ended question of, what is this place?
This is Mecca for motorcycles, and this is where, in my opinion, this is where the 1% motorcycle movement started, through a lie that motorcyclists are intrinsically bad people, and the bad people that they tried to say were bad people were veterans. So back in the early 1930s, Hollister used to host this thing called the Gypsy Tour, which was out in Bellotto Park. And men and women motorcycle groups with both Indian and Harleys used to show up there in the 1930s. And I have a picture of it, this 1937 thing with all these people lined up and everything like that. Well, our returning veterans from World War II wanted to partake in that event, which is part of the baseline story from the Wild One, and we'll get into that in a minute. But these guys showed up to that event and were basically unsummarily kicked out of the event. They were told they didn't have the right helmet, they didn't have the right tires, they didn't have the right gear and everything, so they came down here to this bar at the time, which was owned by a guy named Johnny, and it was called the New Deal. And so those guys came down here, they hung out for a few days. There was some confusion as to whether or not the street could be closed off, because at the time San Benito Street was also Highway 25. And because of that confusion, they called in the National Guard for the reason that there was dancing in the streets. And that apparently was illegal. So we go from veterans celebrating Independence Day here in Hollister and getting the National Guard called in for dancing in the streets to this article that gets written that basically has a bus driver on a motorcycle that he doesn't own, which conflates and inflates the story quite a bit. And I have the negatives here to prove that the whole thing was staged. So from there, you have how things go viral back then. You had, the Hollister Freelance, Los Angeles Times picked up the story. Then it made Life magazine and the Cyclist Holiday thing in Life magazine, which started out with the San Francisco Chronicle, blew up and painted out these veterans to be like pirates. Like they came into the town and they trashed your town and they did all this damage and everything like that. This town's history is predicated on kicking veterans out of its own doors on Independence Day. And there's nothing more un-American than that. So the rally and the bar represent kind of a finger up to those who would kick out veterans, misplace, mistreat veterans, Men's Health, and treat people who gave us our freedom. So the rally kind of stands as an homage to those people who were kicked out of town on Independence Day, who gave us the freedom to have Independence Day in the first place, which is one of the reasons why I like being the custodian of this piece of history.
It's amazing. And I came here during a bike blessing with Ray Sotelo. It's actually where Chaz and I met. It was outside this window here. And I didn't really know a lot about it. I knew kind of what it was. I'd seen the Wild One years before, and I didn't really correlate everything together, even with the mural on the side of the wall out there. And it wasn't until meeting you again and kind of talking to Ray, talking to Mike, and learning more about Hollister as we've been doing this series that I came to understand the significance of what this is. And
you got to ask yourself, why does Hollister have two motorcycle Hall of Famers living inside? There's a reason those two guys are here. There's a reason those two guys' businesses are here. And it's because of that event. And it's because the draw of that event made it good business for them to be here. So they invested into this town because of that.
Yeah. And I feel like the rally could be so much. I went to my first one this past year, and it was just so controlled and corporatized or controlled by the city, where they were shutting people down, charging people egregious fines for operating their own business. And you see what Sturgis is and the economic boom that it causes for everybody. For
it's
the entire
$1 billion rally.
Yeah.
Sturgis is $1 billion rally.
And this should and could be something just like that, where you have Mike Corbin, Ray Sotelo, yourself, Johnny's, and this incredible history of the American motorcycle community here at their fingertips. And it seems like, just like happened in the 40s, they want it out, they don't want a part of it, and they don't want it to even thrive and survive here. Which
I think there's an intrinsic fear from the powers that be that they'll lose the monopoly on violence if they're surrounded by bikers. And that's not been the case in previous years. We've had more problems with local gang violence and local violence than anybody can cite during any rally. Any given week here in Hollister, something goes wrong. Something happens. The police have to deal with something. If anything at all goes on during the rally, they'll use that as the incitement for this is why we can't have these things. You're not going to be able to get a bunch of people together, whether it's a baseball game or a hockey game or a football game or a biker rally, without there being a couple of idiots that the police have to deal with. And that's intrinsic to gathering people. So when we have something like this that has any kind of a mar because there was a fight at the bar or there was a problem or something like that, we went through this last rally with not one single issue.
Yeah.
Not one.
Pretty incredible.
The bar across the street from us had a problem. We didn't. There was no other problems in the streets. There was no other real issues or anything like that. I'm sure that the police have more detailed ideas on things that have happened and everything that they had to deal with that I'm not privy to. But in my 20 some odd years, it's 23, 24 years now of coming out here and doing this, we've rarely ever had problems in the bars. And most of it is just a local who sees his girlfriend out with a new guy or something like that. It's not Laughlin. It's not, some big giant thing. I think the guys that are around here that show up to these rallies know that they don't want to cause any problems because they don't want to mess up the rally. For the most part, all these guys know each other, and it's basically, as I mentioned earlier in the interview, it's a family reunion of people that you may not see next year. Yeah. So the crowds that we get in for the rallies really just want a family reunion. They want to see each other. They want to say hi. They want to pay tribute to the reason why this is all here. And that's easy enough to do without there being problems. I think one of the issues with our rally not being all that successful is it's only a 2-day rally. There's not a rally that is successful anywhere in the world that's only 2 days. Because if you're a t-shirt vendor and you just spend $50,000 on t-shirts and you only have 2 days to sell them, that's quite a gamble. Yeah. But if I had 2 weeks to sell them, that's fair. And that's why Sturgis works. There's also places to ride and places to go. And I've tried to work with the powers that be in the city council and everything like that on creating more of a spread out kind of a thing where they can go down to San Juan Bautista, they can go to, the surrounding areas, just like they do in Sturgis. Yeah. Downtown Sturgis is visited 2 or 3 times during anybody's trip. They go down there, they buy a t-shirt, they get a shot at One-Eyed Jack's, they go get a burger at the Loud American, maybe they go out to the Chip for a concert or anything, but the rest of the time, they're out riding around and doing things in the area.
Yeah, the experiences around it.
And we have plenty of experiences around us. We have plenty of great rides around us. We could even extend this over into King of the Baggers, which is the following week anyway. There's tons of ways.
Because that was a huge event. That was even bigger than the rally was when I went there.
And if this was a 9 or a 10-day event, then you'd get all the sponsorship, you'd get all the security, you'd get all the t-shirt sales and everything like that. But it's almost impossible. It's as expensive as a wedding to basically just set it up, expect it to fly for 2 days, and expect to make money off it. It's almost impossible. Yeah. And it's kind of being set up to fail that way if they're not taking into consideration how other motorcycle rallies function and where they make their money from.
Yeah, that makes sense. I kind of want to shift back to Johnny's specifically. Let's talk about these 2 burnout rings on the floor. They're very prominent. How did those happen? Why did you decide to keep them? What's the meaning behind them?
So at the onset of COVID, we were only allowed to have 50% of our clientele come in. It was 4th of July weekend, and we were told that we were going to be closed the next day and not be able to be open because of COVID and everything like that. And so a friend of mine, David Blair, who used to be a cop, he's got his own little area right there up on the wall. He's now an AHDRA racer, and he drag races Harleys. He's got a bike that fits through the door. And he said, hey, I bet you won't do a burnout in your bar on my bike. And at the time, I thought about it, and there's people in the bar and everything like that. And I walked into the bar and I said, ladies and gentlemen, the bar is closed. Your tabs are paid. If you're staying in the bar, you're staying at your own recognizance because I'm going to put a mural on the ground. So at the time, he came in and we brought the bike in, we made everybody scoot back and everything like that. Did the first burnout. There's a little dent in my burnout right there because the guy was standing on the bar stool trying to film it and everything, and I touched the bar stool when I came across it and everything. The following day, the city manager came in, he goes, do you have any idea how many rules you broke? And I'm like, dude, my bar's closed. I don't even know if it's going to open. You guys shut me down for COVID and everything like that. He goes, well, it's EPA and all this other stuff. And I said, hey, there's gas-powered paint sprayers, right? He says, yeah. And I said, well, I was using that motorcycle as a gas-powered paint sprayer to use that linoleum to make a mural to Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
And so the following day, we were closed, not allowed to have everybody in the bar. And it was July 11th at that point. It was Wino Willie's 100th birthday. And some of the guys, Wino Willie's grandson, came in. And he goes, this bike that I have out there is Wino's bike. It was built for him. He rode it a couple times before he died. And I'd be honored if you would do a burnout in your bar on Wino's bike.
On his birthday.
On his birthday. How am I supposed to say no to that?
Yeah, you can't say
I'm not allowed to have anybody in the bar at that point.
Yeah.
So we did the second burnout, which is closer to us right there on Wino's bike.
That's amazing.
Since then, that became a thing that I started doing across the United States. During COVID, I did my cross country, and any bar that was a biker approved, cool biker bar, if they would let me in there, I would do a burnout inside their bar, perfect circle, or just outside in the front. And it became kind of like connect the dots across the United States. Any biker bar I thought was cool enough, I'd do a burnout in the bar or just outside the front.
Do you have like a map of where those are? Like, do you keep a record of?
I should have. I didn't. I was just going place to place, but it basically goes from Tybee Island, Georgia, back to here.
Wow. That'd be a cool thing to start, like having a map of some kind, and leaving them for people to go through on their journey.
If I could get a tire sponsor, I would absolutely do it. But that right there will take about 5,000 miles off your tire.
Yeah, which they already don't have much more than that sometimes. No. So it's a great way to transition to talking about Wino Willie. We've mentioned him a few times, but you've got his ashes here, Booze Fighters memorabilia everywhere. Who is Wino Willie? Like, what was his role here? Why do you enshrine him at Johnny's, and what does that mean to you?
So, to the best I can recall, he was Air Force, and he was here in 1947 when those things happened. He was part of 13 Rebels at the time and founded the Booze Fighters. He became a local here in the town who used to come here to the bar all the time. And because he was the founder, and because this was his bar, and because of the 1947 thing, it all tied into him. Now, my understanding as to how he got the name Wino, when he was much younger, he lived near enough to a winery to where he would grab a bottle of wine and get drunk as a kid, but specifically on wine. That was his thing. So where Booze Fighters came from, I think, was a conversation after the 1947 thing, somewhere around there, where two guys were talking about what to name the group, what to name the club, and somebody yelled from the back because they thought they were assholes, and they just said, "Yeah, you guys do nothing but fight and drink booze. You guys are just booze fighters." And they thought, "Well, that's a great name." And I think that's the way it happened.
Yeah.
I had seen a documentary, and I'm quoting the documentary on it. So he used to have a spot here at the bar, and he used to come in all the time. And when he passed away, they brought his ashes in here, which are enshrined in a little thing by the front door. I grabbed any of the pictures that were Booze Fighter related and put them all on one dedicated wall. And then I come to find out that mural in the back, which was put up by the Clampers, has a little egg in the middle of it, which has some of his ashes and one of his favorite T-shirts. So this is kind of hallowed ground for the memory of that man and the fact that he started the Booze Fighters, which in itself is, a historical motorcycle club who have a lot of great members, a lot of great people, and they're really all about the history. The people that I meet are a wealth of knowledge when you start talking to them about, well, what happened here and how did this happen? And, and they're of the same mindset that I am, that this town kicked veterans of a foreign war out of itself on Independence Day. And that really is the standing for why this bar is here, why it's historically significant. You can call it, the birthplace of the 1%, but it's where the misunderstanding started. And that misunderstanding is kicking veterans out of your town on Independence Day and then making them to look like bad people is not only just bad business, but it's un-American. And that rally and this bar stands for what those guys sacrificed for, what those guys came here for, how they were villainized. And I think that the 1% thing is worn in recognition of that. I think a lot of the people that understand where that 1% thing comes from, it comes from this incident. It comes from the false blaming of these guys as being bad guys and everything like that. And it was lovingly adopted by everyone in the 1% motorcycle community as if you want to paint me that way, I'll be your Huckleberry. And I think that is an homage to what happened here at this bar here in this town, where they kicked veterans out who were just trying to celebrate Independence Day.
Right after winning World War II.
Right after winning World War II, yeah.
Which is crazy to me, as a military guy myself. But you've called yourself the custodian of this piece of history a few times now, and you have in past interviews. What does that role mean to you?
I don't own the bar. The bar owns me. I'm here to make sure that the pipes work. I'm here to make sure that the bartenders' paychecks don't bounce. This institution predates my existence. It will probably postdate my existence. I am the caretaker of this piece of American history during my tenure. And I look at it that way because it's bigger than me. It's much bigger than me. It's the whole community, and it's trying to just keep this place afloat so that it can survive, so other people can understand what happened here and why this is historically significant. And if you're a guy who needs to go blow off some steam on a motorcycle so you can get your mental headspace back, there's a reason to where this started.
From the mural to the memorabilia to the ashes, you've made Johnny's into something that's truly special. And I think the location was special, but it wasn't until your tenure of it that it's become this iconic location to come to. What detail here matters the most to you?
I can't take credit for putting Johnny's on the map. That actually belongs to Mike Corbin and Sonny Barger. Sonny, back in 1996, said, hey, you're coming up on the 50-year anniversary, which you're actually wearing a T-shirt. Yeah. You guys should do something to commemorate this. And the city council said, no, we don't want to have anything to do with it. Mike Corbin said, hey, look, I'll put up the money for it. And I think between him and his son, they put up somewhere around like $1.3 million to make it happen. They did a pre-rally in 1996. About 50,000 people showed up to it. And I think almost 70 or 80-ish thousand showed up in 1997. And since then, they've been trying to shut it down. It is the reason why Mike is here. He's invested here. It's the reason why Ray and Indian Motorcycles are here. They've invested here because of that history, because of that. So the what do I have to do with it? I think that I'm here to pass along this information to a younger generation. Honestly, if you ask anybody that's 65 years old or older and they ride a motorcycle, they know. If you ask anybody that's 40 years or younger, they're just disconnected from the history. And it only takes one generation for us to lose that bit of history. Yeah. So if I've been able to do anything here, it's to be able to keep the doors open and to try and educate anybody who will walk through the door on why this is historically significant to them as an American.
I think it's a great way to look at it. And I think that's something that people, like you said, lose, just by not hearing it. So I think it's
all it takes is one generation.
Yeah. When someone walks into Johnny's for the first time, what do you want them to feel?
Welcome. Like they just walked into my house. I want them to feel like they came into a party and this is their house too. The place has a history to tell, not only from the history wall here, not only from David Blair and his motorcycle antics, but from all of this stuff, from the horseshoes to the plaques that came from the orchard with everybody. This is this town's history in one, like we're basically a museum for Hollister that serves beer.
Yeah.
And I love having something that has so much of the town's history. And the fact that I had to buy it is one thing, but the fact that people have entrusted me and they come back and they want to add to the walls little bits of history and everything like that is amazing. I had a lady whose husband was an American Motorcycle Association member, and he had a pin and he had a card, and it was in the low like 1000s. Like he was one of the first 1,000 motorcycle members, American Motorcycle Association. And so she gave that to me for safekeeping, and it's on my wall right back there.
Wow.
So sometimes when something that's, historically significant comes across someone and they want to enshrine it, they want to keep it safe, they bring it here.
That's cool. Before we get into our final segment, I want to talk about tattoos. I have a few pieces myself. I know you do as well. They're a big part of motorcycle culture. Do you have a favorite tattoo? One with a story that makes you laugh? And if you ever got more, what would it be?
All my tattoos came as personal reminders to myself. I have 2 tattoos on my legs right across here that are basically a combination of one of those. It was popular at the time to get the tribal tattoo, but I didn't want it to be, some out-of-the-book tribal tattoo. So I did my signature, and I said, turn this signature into a tribal tattoo. So I have that on my legs. And then these on my arms are kind of the same thing. They have a fleur-de-lis in it. My family was part of the Christian Crusades, and we were granted the Cross of St. James because we ran the Moors out of Europe and out of Spain and fought them back in the Holy Land. So the Cross of St. James is significant to my bloodline. And so the Cross of St. James is built into this, but this was also at a time where I'd gone corporate and I went on salary. And so these are broken on the inside because they're broken slavery bonds. This is from a movie that I did on Mayans, and then this is a closing binding that I got in Hawaii to close that chapter in my life because the person that I did with the movie with kept following me around. This on the top and here are both Hawaiian, and I basically told the guy, here's roughly what I want, and he goes, well, I'm just going to freehand it while you tell me the story. So on one side is how your life gets broken, and on the other side is how the ohana, how the family helps you put it back together. So this whole side is destruction, this whole side is creation. Then at one point, being here in this town, I'd been accused of a few things. And so I got these, this is Alpha, and this is omega. And so this is the dark, this is the light, meaning I'm responsible for what becomes from these two hands, the dark and the light. And so this was the last two tattoos that I got. When I feel like something important enough to remember comes up, I'll get another one. I haven't found anything so significant that I need to enshrine it on my skin just yet. I don't do a whole lot of tattoos. I just do the ones that need to remind me who I am. Aside from that was this one, which that was something that was near and dear to my heart because Maui fixed me. When I went there, it was shortly after September 11th. It was shortly after doing some overseas contracting for Kellogg Brown and Root. And I had a bad attitude and I had a bad outlook on life. And that was the same time that I went into bouncing because I liked it. Maui helped heal me. And so that's why that's there.
Well, I think that's a great way to transition into our final segment, which is called the final pour.
We should finish these glasses then. Cheers.
Great way to do it. Would you like another pour?
Well, we're doing the final pour, right?
Well, we have to. This is the first time we've ever actually poured more for the final pour, so this is a great.
There's no sense doing this sober.
Yeah. So in this segment, I like slowing it down a little bit more, asking more somber questions, more serious things. And as you look back now, you've had a journey across states, countries, all over the United States and all over the world. What stands out to you the most about your journey?
Oofta. As a man who's 6'4", Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. In every way. When I was a kid, my friend Jimmy Day is this Korean kid. He's all of this tall, and I'm this tall. And my brother had just been in 7 Brides for 7 Brothers, and he taught me how to throw a stage punch. You grab the guy by the shoulder, you rake your hand across, and you open, you clap like that right when you come across. And so Jimmy and I had been practicing this, And so I'm in 4th, 5th grade. So there's a fight. We're at the bus stop. The school police resource officer guy shows up. Jimmy's like, hey, do the stage punch. He's like, yeah, he grabbed him just like that. And I did the stage punch to this little Korean kid. And all of a sudden I look like this big white guy who just hit a Korean kid right in front of the cop. Well, this cop and all of his justifications grabs my face and presses it down on the police car. Now, this is Las Vegas. It's 100 and fuck outside. And I was burning my face on that thing. Meanwhile, my friend Jimmy is pleading with him. It was a stage punch, And so that was the first time that I realized that just by being a big guy, people will villainize you. And bullies come in all shapes and forms. And there's one thing that I was Christian when I was raised and I was taught not to throw the first punch. And I got my ass kicked for being white in my neighborhood and mostly brown, mostly black, mostly, what do you want to call it and everything like that. I just got beat up just for being in the wrong place at the wrong time. I was never allowed to throw the first punch. And so throughout my life, getting into motorcycles, understanding the history here, I understand how just being in the wrong place at the wrong time and being the most alpha-looking guy in the room, even though you might be just calm, cool, collected, and peaceful, can really work against you. So if my life has been a theme of anything, it's been Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, which if you look at that book twice, you realize that Frankenstein isn't the monster. It's really the village people who misidentified, misunderstood him, and then went after him to burn him. So we have the same thing going on in the history of here, which I've taken up as an anti-bullier, because men who came in to celebrate their independence after winning World War II for us wanted to celebrate that independence here, and were labeled Frankensteins and sent out of town. And since then, we've had the same thing go on. We've had the same thing over and over and over again. Wherever you get these alpha males or big guys or bikers or anything that looks scary, people want to villainize it and say that it's evil. They want to say that it's bad. And I've met more good people, more honestly, like check you out on the side of the road if you're pulled over. I mean, if I'm in a car and I'm pulled over and I've got my 4-ways on, who's going to stop? If I'm on my bike and my helmet is on the ground and I've got my 4-ways on, everybody stops. Everybody stops. They realize you're vulnerable. They realize you don't have a car to stay in out of the heat. You don't have a thing to stay out of the rain. You're stuck. And so people check on motorcyclists, whether they're in a car, whether they're in a bike, but more motorcyclists will stop than cagers. I'll say that. But there's a community of people that understand that we take an intrinsic risk when we get on that motorcycle, and they respect it. Yeah. Some people get it and some people don't. Cheers.
Cheers to that. You've called Johnny's sacred ground a few times in this interview. What does that mean to you?
What other bar has the ashes of more than one man in it? So at the front door is a little glass case. And during COVID, I had to shut off all the power, all the lights. I had to disconnect everything. The power to the light over Wino Willie stayed on the entire time. We were shut down for 8 months at one time, 6 months for another time. And I came in here just not knowing whether I'd ever open the bar again, but understanding that the ashes of more than just Wino Willie are in that. There's a guy named Bill. And Bill's ashes are right there. There's another man whose ashes are right there. So there are ashes for more than 7 people here in this bar. And all of them are motorcyclists, and all of them are respected by somebody enough to ask me to put their ashes here. That doesn't happen at a Kmart.
No,
that doesn't happen at Starbucks or Target or anywhere else. I think that understanding the Frankenstein background of how we take veterans and villainize them, and then also taking the love that's in the motorcycle community and the connections that there are between people, and really understanding how those things all work together to culminate into a non-blood, stronger than family bond between people, is what makes this place hallowed ground. It's what makes this place special. I'm not going to say it's religious in any way, shape, or form, but there's people who have memories in here who are older than me. There are people who've passed away whose ashes are enshrined here. And there's a reason that this history should stay alive, and it should be reminded to every younger person who comes along, because once you lose a piece of history like this, you'll never get anything like that back. Nothing of any historic significance will ever take the place of this. If this place becomes a Subway or anything else it'll ever be, it'll never be what it was. And this bar has touched hundreds of thousands of lives.
Over decades, too. In a previous conversation, you told me about making horseshoes as a way to show that luck isn't random, it's earned through hard work. You kind of mentioned them and then pointed them out over there. Can you tell me about those? What's that moment like when someone earns it and you get to give it to them?
So during COVID, the bar was closed. There was nothing for me to do. People weren't going out and visiting their horses. And a friend of mine who's in the horse riding community said, hey, we will pay you to come out and re-break some of these horses and keep them broken. Some of the horses had been out in a field for almost 2 years with no shoes on whatsoever. So I started working with the furrier to put shoes on the horses. So what would happen is they would pay me and I would pay $150 to have the farrier come out and put new shoes on the horses. So all of the horseshoes that I have are from horses that I've ridden during COVID to try and make extra side money in order to pay the electricity to keep this place afloat between the insurance and the electricity while we were closed for months on a time. I have 2 buckets of horseshoes that come from this experience. The spark plugs in this thing come from Hiro Koiso, who holds the world land speed record at fastest Harley-Davidson at 261 miles an hour on a bike that he built himself. He built my bike. And so once a year I go to Red Rock Harley-Davidson in Las Vegas and I pick up a box of spark plugs from him. They're all genuine Harley-Davidson ones. And his crank from his 261 mile an hour bike is right there in the bar. I tried to give it to him, but he said, no, I want it hanging in your bar. So when I came back, I had seen a cross-wrench horseshoe thing, and this lady came up to me and she said, you know, you're so lucky you own this bar. And I said, not in my experience. I said, ma'am, in my experience, you have to be working your ass off in the right place at the right time in order to gather that luck. So that stuck in my mind, and when I came across this horseshoe thing, I thought to put the spark plug on it and just make it an icon of the bar, this is what I consider a working man's bar. There's a lot of people that come in here, both men and women, but there's a lot of people that are, my regulars are working people, working class people who come in here who make their own luck. These are people who own farms. These are people who work in the hospital industry. These are people who make their own luck. And so as an homage to the people who come in, I made that. And I make them myself in my garage. I collect Model T wrenches when I can find them at, whatever fair, what do you call it?
Flea market or
Flea market or anything like that I go to. And so I use Heroes spark plugs, horseshoes from horses that I've ridden, and wrenches that I find at flea markets and everything like that to put them together. I make them myself. Nobody else makes them, and they're not for sale. They're only gifted to you if you have a clubhouse. I will give you one to hang in your clubhouse. Or if you've ridden 1,000 miles in order to get here, I will give you one, And so what I do is I just have them up on the wall. I just gave one away yesterday to a booze rider that rode here from Rhode Island. And I'll have to go home, make another one, put another one on the wall. And then when somebody rides 1,000 miles to get here, I will direct them over to that wall, let them pick whichever one they want, and hand them a horseshoe. The idea being that, none of us are here for a very long time. All of us are here because we rode here. We understand the history of this. And if you're a person who understands the history and you rode 1,000 miles, well, you deserve something. Not something that's for sale. Not something you can buy a shot glass, you can buy a monogrammed t-shirt or anything like that, but you can't get one of those unless you earn it. And so to the people that have earned them, I'm honored to be able to give that to them. No one else makes them except for the owner of this bar. And I'm a guy who rode all the way up to Prudhoe Bay, Alaska, and slapped a Johnny's Bar and Grill sticker up there just to be the only bar owner that did it, because I love motorcycles and I love what they do for our mental health.
What a great symbol of not just Johnny's and your own story, but for the motorcycle culture. Like, what a great homage to what Johnny's is and who you are as a person. And
who is on a motorcycle who has not made their own luck.
Yeah.
Because I know you've gone through a corner that you didn't think you were going to make it and just went, not today, and leaned it over and made it. So you made your own luck in that. And anybody that's ridden 1,000 miles has experienced that. There's no way you can ride 1,000 miles and have the trip be that easy.
Yeah.
So that to me represents the earned place of being able to be in the position to hold up this piece of history, to know what it means, to be able to gift a symbol of that meaning to anybody else who also gets it.
Yeah. What do you hope your legacy is in this space, not just as the owner and curator, custodian of Johnny's, but as part of motorcycle culture?
Oh God. Again, I'm nobody. I'm a guy who's, holding up a piece of American history, and despite of everybody else who wants to gentrify and change things and make everybody ride electric vehicles and everything like that. My place. I have it. I was the technical director of the EA Sports Maui Invitational, and I had moved off Maui. But it was a good contract. It was $27,000 for me to go there for 2 weeks. And so I went back there to set up all their tech stuff. And during that time, PSAV was out there analyzing what I did and figuring out how many people they would need to replace me, because ESPN decided that since I lived off island, I was now a liability and possibly not going to come back the next year. Now, this is at the Lahaina Civic Center, which was also the Lahaina Luna basketball coach, had his own office inside of there, just off the basketball floor. So here we have Gonzaga and other big name basketball from America. They're playing there. And here's the high school basketball coach hanging out in his office. It was always 63 degrees in there because he liked it nice and cool. Meanwhile, it's 93 degrees. It's 93% humidity out there. So we would go to the coach's office to get cooled off, and I went in there, and he felt my energy. I sat down on his couch, and he goes, "What's wrong?" And I said, I feel like a ghost in my own life. I feel like I'm easily replaced. And he goes, "Well, let me tell you a story. And I'm going to get to your point here in a second." He goes, "My grandfather was born in 1905, and he was a boxer. And he told me this, I'm going to pass it on to you." And he goes, "I can wrap my hand in resin, and I can punch a hole in the water, and that's me and my mana occupying that space in the water. I can make such a tight fist that the water can't even get to the palm of my hand. But when I remove my hand from the water, it's like I was never there. The water will just fill that hole like nothing ever happened." And I said, "Yeah, that's kind of how I feel today." I said, "But your grandfather missed one thing." And he goes, "Oh, what's that?" And I said, "By entering the water, he made a ripple. And by removing his hand, he made a ripple. And if we get a chance to do anything in this life, it's to create a ripple of sentiment that outlasts us." So If I can do anything in the motorcycle community, it is to live by that example. Because that man's words from 1905 now made it to you, and now made it to you. So somebody you never met set forth a ripple that made it to his grandson, that made it to me, that made it to you, and is now making it to thousands of people out here now. And so if we have an opportunity to do anything, it is to create a ripple of sentiment that echoes what our intentions are into the world. And my intentions are to be honorable towards people who fought and sacrificed so that we would have freedom. My intention is to honor the people who need that mental space in a form of being in a state of flow in order to get their head straight. And people who just enjoy motorcycles in general. And there's many reasons why people ride motorcycles, but I'm one of those people that rides because he needs to. So many people that walk through my door ride because they need to. Those guys, they weren't just looking for a good time. They needed the brotherhood. They needed the camaraderie. They were riding because they needed to. And if anybody understands anything about World War II or the horrors those men faced, they would not have kicked them out of this town. And that is the ripple of sentiment that I want to put across to future generations. That people understand what happened, how those men were treated, and how the Frankenstein thing kind of plays into it as a theme, where the defenders end up being the most hated, where the strongest in your community that you really need end up being the most feared. I was here when this last 4th of July, there was an incident that happened at the bar across the street. And there was a motorcycle club that was here. And during the time that they were here, they created a semicircle around my bar, just going like this, just letting everybody know, don't fuck around in here. And I'm not going to say what their name was, but I think you could imagine. Girlfriend at the time walks up to me. She goes, "Are we safe?" I said, "You've never been more safe in your life." The people that come through here are genuinely good people. They're all just Frankenstein, misunderstood. You know, the same thing, Frankenstein, misunderstood. And buying a motorcycle doesn't make you a bad person. Buying a motorcycle shouldn't make you misunderstood. But that's really what the story of this bar is all about. It is really all about being misunderstood because you're on a motorcycle. And if this stands for anything, if there's any ripple that I can put through to younger people, it's don't let anybody pigeonhole you into looking like a bad person just because you're on a motorcycle.
Oh, that plays in perfectly. I got one last final question for you.
Cheers first.
Cheers. Someday, you'll pass this place on to the next custodian. And you get one last toast at Johnny's before riding off for good. What would you say?
First, I hope to pass this off to the right person. I hope that the person who understands the history as intrinsically as I do takes it on as not just a business, but as a personal mission to make sure that things get communicated in a way that is accurate. I've worked very, very hard with a lot of different people to make sure that the history of this place is communicated properly and accurately. Aside from that, if I have one last toast out of here, and I'm known for the Irish goodbye.
It's the best way to leave a party.
It is. Yeah.
It is the best way
I'm
to
known
go.
for just packing up and going. Anybody who cares about me enough has my number. I don't know. I mean, at one point I would say, you know, to everyone who supported me, thank you for your love. And to anyone who doubted me, go fuck yourself. And when you get there, keep going.
Cheers to that.
Yeah.
I think that is a great place to wrap up.
Yeah.
The microphone is yours. What are you working on right now? Any announcements? What's coming up?
Well, right now we're just staring down the barrel of winter and hoping we survive till the next rally. We're hoping nobody pulls the cork on it. We've had, 7 years of empty promises, 1 year of they actually did it. There's plenty of people that don't want to have that rally happen just because you can't say rally in real estate without acknowledging there's a huge conflict of interest there. Aside from that, there's some adjustments that can be made to the rally. As far as the bar is concerned, we just, business as usual, just hoping to keep the doors open between now and then. And hoping that our customers still come in and support us and understand why this place is historically significant. In between then, we do our best to make a burger that you can't make at home. We buy all our beef from B&R Beef, with it's a local ranch that uses cattle that are all grass-fed. We buy our buns from Heavenly Bakery. We get our produce from Watsonville Produce. So we source everything locally and make sure that we're doing it in that whole sustainable way. But not only that, but making something that is healthy for you. And it's hard to say that a burger could be healthy, but the right kind of meats, the right kind of amino acids, the right kind of fats and everything are in fact healthy for you. So I can in fact serve you a burger that's healthy. And I'm doing it all with non-processed, non-GMO, pesticide controlled stuff, and doing it in a way that is locally sustainable and supporting local businesses around me in my little microeconomy. So I hope people appreciate that, and I hope people come in for what we serve, because what we served has been hard picked through a list of easier to go through vendors that produce stuff that is not as good for you. So not to say that alcohol is good for you, but I don't need running shoes to run, but it sure makes it a lot easier.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a great, again, exemplary way of just showing off Johnny's, just from the memorabilia to the way that you make your food and from where you get it from, just ties the roots of this place even deeper and deeper. And I think it's pretty clear that Johnny's isn't going anywhere. People should probably figure that out after 80 years.
Right.
Well, that's it for this ride. Huge thank you to you, Peter, for taking the time to share some stories with us, open up the bar, and show us everything. Follow him at Johnny's Bar and Grill, link in the bio, and keep your eyes out for the next event. Until next time, ride safe, drink slow, and we'll see you on the next episode of Throttles and Bottles.
Thank you.
Here we go.
Cheers.
Cheers to you, sir. Thank you to the sponsors of today's episode. Without them, we wouldn't be able to do this, and we look forward to having more.
Can we pause for a minute?
Yeah.
Okay. There's a fly on you that's been bothering you. It's right here. Just go like that.
I've been trying to get it this whole time.
Oh, dude,
Almost.
I got
He's
it.
right there.
No, I got this.
He's flying over there.
Well, there's one on the ground now.
I would love to kill that one.
I always had my little salt gun.
I know. That'd be awesome.
I've heard those are actually super accurate.
I have fun with them. I have one.
Watch this. If I can pull this off, it'll be great.
You got him?
I just caught him.
Awesome.
My mic almost just
You
fell
can
off.
leave that in the interview.
Yeah.
You totally evidence. You totally Mr. Miyagi that one, and I guarantee you that camera caught it.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I'm going to put that on my resume now.
Flycatcher. So,
I think that's the fly.
picking up for where that led off.